Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Wednesday, January 31st after a couple weeks off. I'm Zach Worden, joined today by Jake Brannen, and the Toronto Blue Jays made a move. Justin Turner is the DH. Maybe could he play third base? I guess we'll see. But Jake, how have you been?
I've been great. Great to be back on the pod, talking some Blue Jays, of course. Yeah, it's been a bit of a slow off season, kind of disappointing overall, but yeah, finally an exciting day in Blue Jays land for sure. A day that kind of rejuvenated my hopes a little bit for the 2024 season. A move that I can finally kind of get behind, not fully, but I like the move overall. It's a 1 year deal. It's cheap. It's a good, solid veteran bat that I am confident in. I mean, he's 39, so obviously it's baseball, could just fall off the face of the earth, but I think there's nothing in his stat profile to indicate that's going to happen. It's just purely that age number. I think it's a good signing. The only unfortunate thing is it does pretty much close the door for a Jorge Soler signing, which I know you were looking forward to, and I was kind of also looking forward to as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of the JT thing is it's like, wow, they finally made an offensive addition after it's almost been like 2 years straight of like pure defensive ads. Even if if you think back to last season, trade deadline, it's like Jordan Hicks, Paul DeYoung. I mean, I guess you can consider that like a defensive addition. Obviously, he didn't really provide much offense. So, yeah, and then of course last offseason when they really went in hard on pitching and defense with like Varsho, Kiermaier, Bassett, I guess Belt last year. But like it's pretty exciting to get a player like Justin Turner who is somebody that I think that you can always, like, for the past 10 years you basically look at and you're like, man, I'd love to have that guy on my team.
Yeah, just
And
just a solid overall hitter, right? Just a guy that gets on base, does his job. He's a good veteran bat. Like you look at it and you're like, okay, maybe I'd rather him be the five hitter than the four hitter. So hopefully they have more offensive additions to come. But yeah, overall it's positive, right?
yeah, and I mean it seems like he's going to be a great fit in the clubhouse. I'm sure, like I bet you that signing came out and the rest of the team was ecstatic. I mean, you look at like Bo Bichette was on Blair and Barker and was like, hey, yeah, I'd love for JD Martinez or Justin Turner to come in and be a veteran presence in the clubhouse. Chris Bassett was on MLB Network Radio like after the signing was announced yesterday, and he's like, yeah, he's perfect for us. Like he's going to be a great fit. And I mean, obviously that stuff doesn't care. I mean, it could carry on to the field. It isn't necessarily going to make or break the signing, how much of an impact that he has in the clubhouse, I would say. But I think having a guy who can come in and make an impact and is already super respected by the locker room is maybe something that might get a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, it definitely can't hurt. By far the oldest guy on the team now. So yeah, he's gonna get respect in the clubhouse. As he should. I mean, I like the move overall. I think yeah, like they just missed out on a lot of guys. So it's nice to finally hit on something, to finally have a signing that we can say, okay, I'm happy about this. And now let's look forward to the future where hopefully they can lock down that third base position and not have somebody like IKF as the starter. Like ideally the next move I think is to move on to Matt Chapman and have a reunion there. And upgrade the offense overall rather than downgrading from last year. I think this is a big step forward. This replaces Belt, which I would rather have Turner than Belt, I would say. I don't know about you, but just because of that pure platoon reason. Another guy they were looking at is Jock Peterson as well, but he's a guy that's going to need a platoon as well. So that's why I like Turner. I obviously the Jays have always needed these left-handed bats, but when you have to platoon them, it kind of defeats the purpose, I think. So yeah, just having Turner, a guy you can just plug into to the DH spot every day is exciting for me.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on this because Jory and I kind of talked about this a few weeks ago. But so as far as replacing Brandon Belt, right? So like Turner kind of ideally comes in as the Belt replacement there, and then you kind of maybe add something else around that. But so last year Belt had a 138 WRC plus, and it feels like that might be a little lofty for, literally anybody that they signed. It feels like it would have been tough to match that kind of WRC plus, right? So, where it's at right now, kind of as far as like in and out stuff goes, like they're in Turner, Rodriguez, IKF, out Chapman, Belt, Ryu, Merrifield. So, if we look at it this way, right, like you can say Rodriguez replacement for Ryu, sure, like he gives you a little bit more versatility, kind of being back and forth, however you want to use them. IKF Merrifield replacement, hopefully not Chapman replacement. Um, and then Turner for Belt. But so as far as like a team that's looking to get better, like do you think that Turner, like is there something that Turner can bring that will potentially be able to like match Belt's 138 WRC plus that can kind of make up for that gap?
Yeah, I think I like Turner more overall next year than Belt. Belt had a really, really good year, the 138 WRC plus, obviously, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty in that. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate the season that he had last year at all. And then, like I mentioned, the platoon splits is really a big thing for me. You never have to worry about replacing Turner in the lineup. He's just always going to be in that DH spot, which also has its downsides as well, because obviously we have George Springer, who doesn't like playing on the turf, is very injury prone. So that kind of blocks up. Like, where does Turner go when somebody else needs a DH day off? They don't really like that's kind of the downside to him, right? Because he can't play the field anymore. He used to be a very good defender, but he's just too old now. He doesn't have it anymore. Maybe they could get away with throwing him as second base, but definitely not third, definitely not short. Second and first, but then if you're throwing him at first, then you're replacing Vladdy, and that obviously is something they don't want to do. So maybe they get away with throwing him at second a couple times if they want to DH Springer, but yeah, just not ideal to have him in the field. I would definitely have rather had Hoskins or Soler as the DH signing, get them for a couple years as well. Turner's just going to be 1 year. I really like the Hoskins deal, 2 years. I think that's perfect. That's the time frame we're looking at with Vladdy. If he doesn't resign, that's how many arbitration years he has left. So I just thought it was a perfect fit and a great money deal as well. It was 2 years, 34 mil with the Brewers. And I think Hoskins would probably have rather come to the Jays. I think they have a better chance to compete than the Brewers too. So yeah, definitely a bit disappointed that we didn't get a higher profiled name, but it's still something I'm excited about. And if they get Chapman as well, then I'm gonna be fine with this offseason. I think the team can compete and maybe sneak their way into a deep playoff run.
Yeah, I think the Hoskins and Soler stuff is interesting because to me, like Turner's maybe a little bit more of a safer option than Soler. Obviously, like Soler hits the ball really hard, but then I mean, obviously you say that as well, and he is 39, right? And you don't know when the cliff is going to come, so maybe he's not the safer option. But as far as like what he's provided in his career, like he's been consistently the same dude for like 10 years now, and Soler has decidedly not been that and has kind of that up and down track record. So, I mean, maybe you bring in Turner because you feel like you get a little bit more certainty as to what type of hitter he's going to be versus Soler, where you could be like, yeah, maybe he'll pop 40 home runs, or maybe he'll be like a replacement level bat kind of thing.
Yeah, so Soler's definitely a very streaky hitter, so he comes with a lot of risk for sure. It's weird to say that Turner might be the safest out of the three guys we're talking about, Soler, Hoskins, and Turner. He might be the safest at 39. Hoskins obviously comes with the injury risk. Soler comes with the hot and cold uncertainty year to year. He could have a 140 WRC plus and then go back down to being just a league average hitter. Yeah, but Turner's just he's someone I'd still feel safe in. You look at his WRC plus, it has been declining since 2020, which is kind of concerning, but still, even though it's declining, still a really good year last year. 23 home runs, 276, 114 WRC plus as a DH. Um, hasn't had a WRC plus lower than 114, lower than 100 for that matter, since 2013. It's just been a long time of him just producing at a really solid level, getting on base, not striking out above 20%. Um, yeah, I think I think he fits well in this lineup for sure. I think it's going to be a welcome addition something that the Jays desperately needs, a little bit of power and a guy that can get on base in the four hole for sure.
I want to come back to the defense point eventually, but it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting too. I don't know if you saw yesterday. So Chris Cotillo of Mass Live, he tweeted out basically like a story anecdote from him about Turner battling through a bone bruise in his heel last year that like really made it tough for Turner to like basically walk. He said that basically he like it was tough to watch him walk around the locker room because of how much the heel affected him, and that like basically Turner was just he wanted to show the young players that you you want to like push through things for your team or whatever, right? Like kind of like you want to post every day and be able to just stick things out, right? So I mean, obviously I lean a little bit on the side of like, hey, maybe if you're hurt, like playing might hurt your team, but you know, Cotillo also like he replied to a tweet where he's like, I would totally discount September. So if you look at like Turner's stats, so in September he slashed 221, 286, 295. So that's a 56 WRC plus. So if you took his September numbers out of his full season stats, he ended up with a 126 WRC plus, 287, 357, 488 slash line, 363 WOBA. So I mean, like there, if like to me that is like significantly more encouraging as like as he's still that same guy instead of like maybe seeing that last month of injury impacted play and being like, is he, you know, gonna be a 110 WRC plus bat again next year, or is that decline going to keep coming? Whereas he was a 126 guy until the last month of the season and could barely walk and kept playing. So if you keep him healthy, is he going to be able to kind of pop like a plus 120 number? I think is kind of where I would look at that and say that he is still pretty safe as a hitter.
Yeah, I guess if that's true, if you just fully discount that last month, then that kind of negates my point completely about him potentially declining the last 3 years. It was a very short decline. He was pretty much the same player, 21 and 22, and then yeah, obviously a bit of a drop off this year. But yeah, if you take out that last month and he's still a 125 WRC plus bat, then he's basically just been the exact same player for the last 3 years. And sure, he's 39 this year, but he's also only DHing. He's just all he has to do is show up to the clubhouse every day and take four at bats, right? So are we really going to say he's like just because he's 39 he's going to decline? I don't think so. Like DHs have proven that they can withstand age for quite a bit of time. Like we've seen so many guys, Ortiz being like a prime example of a guy who actually never even declined. He even the year he retired, he was still one of the better hitters in
Yeah.
the league, right? So like I could see Turner doing that. Like he has a 1 year deal. Maybe he keeps doing this. Maybe he keeps just signing 1 year deals and being a really solid DH for a long time until he eventually hangs it up. But he could just even until like 43 could just continue being a 120 WRC plus hitter. That's absolutely not out of the question.
Yeah, it's obviously when you like look at that and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take out the last month of September because he was hurt. It's again like 39-year-olds like they get hurt as well. So there's obviously still going to be that possibility. But I think it was interesting too. Shy was on Sportsnet Central last night and he was like, well, he brought up Nelson Cruz, and that's a little scary, I would say, because I mean if you look at Nelson Cruz, he's like he looked like he's going to be an ageless type of guy, right? Like kind of get the guy that we're talking about where he, 2021, he still has a 123 WRC plus and he's 40, but then 2022, he's an 86 WRC plus guy. And obviously that's a really huge cliff to fall off of, and that's basically the fear with Turner, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Cruz is one of those guys that was also just like Ortiz, right? He was just defying age every year, just proving everybody that was saying he's going to fall off a cliff wrong, and eventually he does fall off that cliff. It's going to happen eventually. It's such a hard thing to predict. You never really know. You kind of just keep buying it until it happens. Like there's really no other process. You can't just be like, okay, it's 41 now. That's going to be it. Like he could still be good. Like there's nothing. I mean, I guess we're seeing something in the numbers, but we're excusing it with the last month of him potentially being hurt. But if there's nothing super overwhelming in the numbers, which there isn't, then I say go for it.
Yeah, and I mean also he's a guy that like has never really relied on like exit velo stuff, right? Like he's a pulled fly. He's like one of the OG change my swing to be a pulled fly ball guy. And, like that's something that where, maybe the exit velo falls off a little bit and you don't quite get the same distance on when you're pulling it, but to me it almost seems like he knows how to get the most out of his swing, and that's something that isn't necessarily going to go away overnight. So back to the defense though, I'm interested to know what you think because he only played 57 innings at third base last year, and it was a -3 DRS and a -3 OAA. Do you think that I mean, the year before he was a positive at third base by DRS. So do you think there's any world where they are looking at this as maybe there's still something in there at third base and we can give him a shot to start the year at third base and kind of see if the 57 innings last year is just kind of some small sample noise, or is he cooked as a third baseman?
I think it's kind of maybe in their mind as a backup plan. I don't think that's initially what this signing is. I think they're looking at it as, okay, this is going to lock down our hole at DH for Belt. And now we put kind of all of our resources into Chapman. If Chapman fails, maybe that's something that they're looking at. But in my mind, if Chapman fails and they don't make a significant trade for a third baseman, I don't really see much of this season. I think that's kind of just throwing in the white towel to the Dodgers and saying, okay, like you guys outsmarted everybody. We're just gonna, put a competitive team on the field and maybe make the playoffs. I think if they don't get Chapman, the season's kind of cooked. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think Turner. I think his days of being an infielder are done. Unfortunately, just seeing the numbers last year, maybe like you never know. I guess I'll never say never, but in my mind, I think no. I think he's just going to be a DH as long as they don't make a signing to fill that third base hole.
Yeah, I think I asked that question more out of fear than actual belief that he could be a third baseman because I would lean on the
Yeah,
side of like there's probably no chance that he's really bringing you much defensively at this point where it's kind of funny because you look at like some of the defensive stats, right? Like we've had this conversation so many times where defensive stats suck, but if you look at the like
yeah,
user per 50 or whatever, like the UZR per 50, and he's like minus
yeah.
47.3, and it's like, all
Yeah,
right, well,
that's scary.
yeah,
It's only 57 innings, I guess. So like you never know.
yeah,
Fielding stats need to be over a long sample size, but
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty scary for sure.
yeah. I guess kind of wrapping up, I mean, we talked about some of the other options. I know like you're kind of more Hoskins, I was kind of on Soler. As far as like some of the other options out there, like JD Martinez, BNS reported that they were interested in him. They obviously missed out on Jock. Buster only reported that they went hard for Jock, which I think we kind of already knew. He seems like a guy that they've always been interested in. But yeah, so I like Joey Votto. I'm like pretty obviously the storyline would have been cool, but I'm glad that that's not the direction that they decided to go because I feel like it's pretty likely that he isn't going to be an impact hitter for a World Series contender. So as far as those guys go, like I don't know where Turner would have fallen on your rankings. Like I think I would have rather had Turner than, or I would have preferred in a world like if I was a GM, I would probably prefer Turner to JD, who kind of had that Dodgers magic stuff last year and has also been declining for a while and also had his strikeout rate jump a ton last year. So, I'm not sure how reliable he is there, but is there kind of any like thought process from you? Like obviously like Hoskins, Soler, probably at the top of that ranking, but is there anybody else that you think would have been a better ad than Turner?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at JD compared to Turner right now. It's definitely close. I think Turner is going to be a little bit safer, even though he's quite a bit older than JD actually. Yeah, JD's strikeout rate is definitely concerning. He reached that 30% threshold for the first time in his career as a 35-year-old, so that sentence alone should scare you. But overall, his year was really, really good. He had a 370, he had 369 WOBA, 370 x WOBA, which kind of backs that up exit velocity wise, 33 homers, like he had one of his better seasons, honestly, as a 35-year-old. It's just the strikeout rate is really concerning. Turner remains a guy that's going to be under 20%, which is just really safe. Yeah, so I'd say I'm pretty even on those two. I guess the upside to Turner is you could potentially throw him at a second base, maybe third base, and get away with it if they need to. JD is absolutely 1,000,000% just a DH. You're not even really thinking about throwing him in a corner outfield spot. So that I think I maybe would just prefer Turner by a slight bit. But yeah, my ranking's still gonna go Hoskins, Soler, and then we'll go Turner, and then JD, and then probably Jock after that, just because Jock has the platoon concerns.
Yeah. I'm not actually like super concerned about um like lefty like the platoon of this lineup because like they've kind of proven that they're pretty safe against righties despite them mostly being right-handed. Obviously, it like does help opposing teams because you're not gonna like bring in a lefty to face them, right? So basically, when you come in, you're like, yeah, I know I'm just gonna use my righties against this team. I don't need to really worry about any like is there a lefty hitter in the lineup that scares you?
No, yeah, like you're not like, oh my God, like let's really
Yeah.
worry about Kiermaier here and get our in Biggio and get our lefties ready, or right? Like, yeah, you're not scared of any of the lefties for sure. Like they're gonna use a better right-handed pitcher over just a serviceable lefty to try to get these guys out for sure.
To me, like that basically means that your left-handed hitters have to really take advantage of those matchups then, right? Like Dalton Varsho has to smash righties this year
Yeah,
because
that's a
like
big part of their year is going to be Varsho for sure. If Varsho can turn it around, that gives this team a lot of hope. But
yeah,
he's definitely like one of the guys that you're highlighting at that start of the year. This is him, Manoa, like those are like game changer type guys that can give this team some kind of hope, I would say.
yeah. I mean, obviously, again, we've beaten. I think everybody's beaten the horse to death at this point as far as like the internal improvements are gonna decide how far this team goes. Like it's all on Vlad, all on Varsho, all on Kirk, all on Springer, on those guys kind of figuring it out. And obviously, not all of them probably will. It's hard to say, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, obviously, JT's a nice addition to kind of surround those guys, and I don't necessarily mind. I think all three of us, like when we did this, like building the offseason pieces, we were all kind of like, well, we're gonna support the core. And if they do bounce back and let them carry it, like I don't think any of us really made a super like none of us theorized the addition of a superstar.
No, yeah, we weren't. None of us were like, okay, like it's Otani or bust, right? Like
Yeah,
this was kind of our plan all along. It's just it's the job's not finished.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it's taken a really long time, and it's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for Blue Jays fans uh, to see this unfold. You're kind of just wait, like I don't know what their backup plan is to Chapman. Like if it's gonna be Biggio and Schneider as full-time starters, I'm just like really disappointed. So they've kind of backed themselves into a hole taking this long. They missed out on the Polanco trade as well. That would have been a great fill for Chapman. There was just a lot of options that they've missed out on, and they're kind of looking like Chapman or bust right now, in my opinion. Um, I was looking forward to maybe a Bellinger signing too, but that I don't. It seems unlikely with the Kiermaier signing. The Kiermaier signing's fine. He's still he's a solid player. He's not a huge difference maker, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does feel like they're a move away. I mean, I'm just trying to find this tweet here from yesterday where somebody was kind of comparing the war that they're in and out, right? So
Yeah,
so if Chapman doesn't sign, basically like looking at it, like they're still like 4 WAR behind where they were last year. So does that internal improvement, positive regression, however you want to frame it, does that make up for WAR. But at the same time, if you think about like if you're going to get positive regression from like your offense, I would also say you're probably likely to get some negative regression from your pitching and defense, which was outstanding last year. And you're still not 100% sure what you're getting out of your fifth rotation spot. And, I don't know if Vlad is a superstar, like that makes up for that difference. But there's a lot that has to either stay the same or go right for that to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, the rotation was so good last year. You're kind of not even concerned about it right now, but yeah, there's there's definitely a lot of things that could go really wrong with the rotation. I'm not a huge projections guy. I never have been, but right now the starting rotation has one guy projected to have below a 4 year ERA, and that's Kevin Gausman. The rest, you got Barrios 4.12, Bassett 4.03, Kikuchi 4.20. Manoa 4.60. Obviously, he could be one of those guys that I mentioned could be a difference maker. But those three right there having over a 4 ERA, Barrios, Bassett, and Kikuchi, that's definitely in the cards, right? Like it could certainly happen. They could just have a 4 ERA and not be as good. And maybe the offense is better, but then the rotation's worse, and you kind of are looking at the exact same results as last year, unfortunately.
So yeah, so I mean, I guess that kind of transitions perfectly into the Yariel Rodriguez signing because we haven't talked about that yet here. It's still not official. I know there's like some immigration issues there, so maybe it might even fall through. Like who knows? But what'd you make of that? Like a 4 year, $32 million deal, 26-year-old Cuban starter. I thought it's a decent bit of business. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he turns out. I'd be a little more. I'd be higher on the signing if it was kind of purely as a reliever than as a potential starter.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what their plans are for him, but overall, I like the signing. I think it's a good process. I think it's just a really good depth move for sure. He kind of solidifies that long reliever role in the bullpen, and then if anything goes wrong with the rotation, if anybody gets hurt, he can jump in there and do a much better job than a lot of the guys that they normally like to run out. A lot of their starters in AAA, right? So it's a depth move. It's a good overall team move, and I like it. He's a young guy that they're signing to a reasonable contract that's gonna help them right now. I think it's a good signing. It's something that it's not something you can say you're excited about, but it's something that you're happy about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at it, like obviously he's got like an insane slider. If you look at Saris's kind of stuff plus from the
Yeah.
World Baseball Classic last year, like his slider was a 127.6 stuff plus. Overall, so I'm not really sure how to because like if you go and look at the fastball specifically, like it looks like a pitch that's like way better than it graded out in Eno's model where it had it as a 72.9 stuff plus 80.6 location plus. But I mean he was also throwing like 95, 96 with 2300 spin rate. So, to me that seems like it should probably be graded a little bit better, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see where like how he does once he gets over here. Um but I like to me like he's almost like a two pitch guy right now. Like we haven't really seen much of the curveball and the changeup and the sinker. Like I think the sinker would be an interesting pitch for him to add. Like obviously this is all very way in depth for a guy who we don't necessarily know exactly where he's going to start, what he's going to be, what their plans are for him. But you know, I think they probably give him a shot as a starter. It sounds like they're going to send him to Buffalo to stretch him out to start the year, which sure, I again don't mind it. You let Manoa see what he can do with the fifth role if he's able to bounce back, and then you go from there. And then I just think he profiles like so well as like a back of the bullpen kind of guy.
Yeah, he's kind of Manoa insurance right now, but they have him for 4 years, so he could turn out to be much more than that. Yeah, like right now he's a two pitch pitcher. He kind of profiles as a guy that could be really good in the bullpen right now, but the command, he gets a 50 grade command on Fangraphs as well. So maybe he develops a third pitch and truly becomes a middle rotation starter for this team long term. You never know, but but yeah, right now I think he's definitely a difference maker in the bullpen still.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, where it's like we see these guys get signed and we're like, this is who they are. But I think that's a great point, right? Like where it's like he can totally add things and like become a different pitcher, right? So for me, like where I'm like sitting here like, ah, he's a two pitch guy, whatever. But you're like, well, yeah, but like he can add something or get better too. Like he's never pitched in Major League Baseball and he's 26. So there's definitely room there for improvement. So I think that's definitely a good point for something to keep in mind. So yeah, I mean I don't really have much else about him, but as far as like other recent news, Vladdy cover of MLB The Show 24. It's the reaction on Twitter was fairly interesting, but yeah, 'cause I think it's pretty cool. I thought the cover looked sick. Um, like where are you at on Vladdy being on the cover?
Yeah, I'm obviously super, super excited. I wasn't really expecting this at all. The talk was kind of it's going to be Acuna or Jose Ramirez. I was kind of leaning towards Acuna just because he had such a special season, and he's like Vlad, just a young player, really good for the league. But yeah, I mean, this is amazing for us. Obviously, it's amazing for baseball in Canada to have somebody on the Jays as the cover the first time since 2016 since Donaldson was on the cover. So yeah, super excited. Yeah, and the design looks great too. I really like the overall design of the cover. The intro video was great. It was great to see Vlad and Ortiz kind of chopping it up back in the Dominican Republic in the introduction video. It's really cool just seeing them kind of interact. How Ortiz kind of looks at Vlad as his son, like he's not his biological son, but just like a son, just because he grew up. Vlad he watched Vlad grow up watching him play with his dad. So yeah,
Yeah.
just a cool thing for sure overall, and great for Canadian baseball.
They haven't announced the collector's edition yet, but I'm curious, do you think
Right.
like there's a possibility that like Vlad Sr. gets the collector's edition?
That'd be really cool. And that's another cool thing too, is his dad's been on the cover before as well. So having that yeah, that I think that'd be really awesome to have Vlad Sr. on the collector's edition cover. I think that'd be really special.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be super cool. Did you read the ESPN article with Vladdy's like quotes about the upcoming season?
I didn't read it yet, no.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like just I like obviously as far as like the 2024 Blue Jays, like the cover is totally irrelevant for how they do whatever.
Oh, okay, I saw some of these quotes. Yes, I
But
saw
yeah,
some of
where
these
where
quotes.
he's where he's like, this is my season.
Yeah.
This is when people are going to know about me. It's either going to be Vlad Jr.'s back or Vlad Jr. stay behind. I'm focused on what I have to do, and 100% confident in myself that this year is going to be great. So I mean, like, again, we're doing the quote stuff again, but I think it's nice to see that he is like he kind of knows where he wants to be at least.
Yeah, he knows where he wants to be. He knows what type of player he still is. I think being on the cover helps. I think it kind of reassures him that he can be this player, and now he's got kind of a chip on his shoulder because he's gonna see the comments, right? Like, oh, Vlad doesn't deserve to be on the cover, whatever. And I
Yeah.
think I hopefully that's gonna light a fire under him and make him want to really reach his full potential. I think we've talked about it quite a bit that he ran into quite a bit of bad luck last year as well. So just naturally, I think his numbers are going to turn around, but he can make improvements internally as well, and it could just be really scary. I have a lot of confidence in Vlad for next year. I'm just going to continue to. I was confident in him all this year. I kept saying he's going to turn it around. He never really did. But yeah, I'm going to continue to be confident in Vlad, and I think we're going to see a big season from him for sure.
Yeah, I mean the projection systems all are all back all the way back in on him, right? Like that's if we look like the bat has him 142 WRC plus, like 4 win season, Steamer 145 4 win season, Zips a little less optimistic 133 3 win season. But I mean, if any of those happen, like you're happy, you're super like you're over the moon basically that he's at least looking like an above like an above league average player.
Yeah, I think the projections are even modest for sure. He could some of them are modest. I
Yeah.
think some of them are better than others. Like the ones that get up to 140, I think that's what I'm expecting. And if it's a special year, maybe it could exceed that. But yeah, I think a 140 WRC plus is kind of what I'm expecting from Vlad for next year, I would say.
Did you see in, all right, I don't know if so somebody I didn't really see this, like I saw it screenshotted once on Twitter, but that Vlad had a Diamond Dynasty team last year.
Oh my gosh.
So
I need to see this,
they put
yeah.
in here they're like Guerrero, an avid gamer who has created a Diamond Dynasty team with two of his cousins that as a week ago boasts a 92 and 44 record.
Okay, 92 and 40. We can live with that. That's
Yeah,
that's not bad for
it's
for an athlete. He's got other stuff to do. I'm glad if his record was better than that, I might be a bit concerned. I'm like, oh, maybe get off the game, man. But
well,
no, that's
I
fine.
I want to know like how much is him and how much is are his two cousins, like as far as
Probably
the
most of
mix there.
yeah. Vlad's got he's got a couple games in there.
What was your Diamond Dynasty record last year?
I'm actually still playing right
Are you?
now, but
Nice.
I kind of picked I played the first season and now I'm playing again. But I think I'm like 120 and 50 maybe.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay.
Not amazing, but
Yeah.
not bad. Got
Yeah.
it's all right. I'm trying to get better.
I
Yeah.
I think I got to like 50 and 25 or something like that. Like I,
That's
you know,
that's good.
that feels like a lot of it's crazy. Like it feels like so many games, but you see the people that are like 600 and 100. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you play 700 games of this?
No, it's crazy. Like the top player right now has like 1,600 wins. He's like 1,600 and 100. So to
Yeah.
put it in perspective of the best to kind of just
Yeah.
more average players that we're looking at right here.
Oh man, it's so crazy, so crazy. Yeah, well, I mean, as far as that goes, like I don't really have much else about the cover. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about it. Like, I mean, again, it's one of those things that it's like it's cool, but again, it's not really gonna have much of an on-field impact.
Yeah, Vlad's kind of had some of those moments like home run derby stuff. Now the cover, he's had like cool moments, but it's like okay, we're kind of waiting for him to do that for real baseball when it matters. And obviously he's still so young, but the time is kind of running out for the Jays if they don't reach a contract extension with him. So hope it's gonna have to be this year or next year unless they strike a really big deal, which I mean, it seems pretty likely that he's gonna go to free agency at this point, but you never know, obviously. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, but before we go, I'll get your thoughts on this kind of the arbitration stuff because we kind of skimmed past it a couple weeks ago. But for
yeah.
him, like, I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of the arbitration difference where the Jays filed at like around 18-4, I think, and he was like 19-9. I can't
I think
remember
it
the
was. Go ahead.
no, I just can't remember the exact numbers, but I think that's kind of around
Oh
where it
yeah,
was.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it was just kind of bound to happen. Just having a dispute with him, just he we've kind of said it quite a bit. He knows that he's a much better player than than he put on than what he did last year. That's just kind of how it is. He deserved to have a better season, and he knows he's a much better player. He sees himself quite differently than the Jays probably see him. So it was just natural that a dispute was going to happen. Um, yeah, I don't know how much more there is to really say about it, but um, it's unfortunate when stuff like this happens in baseball. It's not good for player team relationships, and it's like okay, maybe just like maybe just give him the extra million or whatever he's asking for. It's not gonna financially bankrupt you. This is the face of your franchise, right? So
Yeah.
just have some confidence in him. I know like you can get away with it. You might win the case just because he batted 264 last year, only hit 26 home runs. Like, does he deserve 20 million from that? No, but he's a better player than that. You know it, he knows it. So just have some confidence in him and maybe that goes a long way in him re-signing with the team and re-signing for maybe a more team friendly in the future as well. Kind of like what I mean, you can't really call Otani's team friendly, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's team friendly for now. So
Yeah.
maybe we can get something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean the arbitration hearings are in a couple weeks, I guess. I can't exactly remember the specific dates of when they are, but we'll see if they can like maybe do like a 2-year deal, buy out the rest of his arbitration, kind of like they did with Bo, or
Yeah.
maybe they get something done longer term. It'll be, hopefully they can kind of settle something before. I know they're a file and trial team, so they won't do a 1-year deal with him after they exchange numbers, but yeah, hopefully there's something there that can kind of come up in the next week or so before they have to go and say bad things about him into his face.
Yeah, let's try to avoid that for
Yeah,
sure. That's
exactly.
something similar to Bo. I think that's probably what is gonna happen. Probably what I'm hoping is gonna happen. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that will do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Jake, great to have you back. Make sure you drop a follow or review wherever you get your pods. You can follow us all on Twitter. The pod is at BEV_pod. Jake is at Jake Brannen _. I am at Worden_Zach. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. Make sure you check us out on Substack. I wrote a piece last night breaking down the Justin Turner signing, so go check that out there. And thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.